Good evening, family. Hopefully all is going well for you guys, and welcome to our online version, the Koinonia Virtual Cafe of the mini-series, Got Lust, Let's Deal With It. And basically just to share with you guys, this is a real casual format. As you know, we have our sessions on Friday night, and we heard that there's a lot of people who work on Friday nights, work in retail, etc., and aren't able to attend. So what we've designed this to do is to enable you to get just a glimpse, a piece of what we actually covered during the mini-series. And again, as I mentioned, this mini-series is titled Got Lust, Let's Deal With It. And lust ultimately is an extreme desire. And every last one of us, we all have lust. But the question is, what is it that we're lusting after? See, if you're an adult, if you have aspirations, you're motivated to do something, you have a drive to do something, if you're responsible, if you're driven, there's always something that you're passionately seeking after. But the question is, what is it that you're passionately seeking after? How are you seeking after it? What are you seeking? What are you looking for? And more importantly, are we pursuing what God's designed for us, or are we pursuing what we've designed for ourselves? And the message that we're going to be looking at is getting into God's will for our lives and managing lust. Now, in the Bible, biblically, if you look at 1 John chapter 2, it identifies lust in various ways. So in our last mini-series, when the enemy attacks, fight or flight, we learned that we're engaged in a daily battle to live a life that's pleasing to God. And you guys are all very familiar with the struggles that we experience day to day. And our enemies that Satan's put in our path are the world, the flesh, and the devil. And as we walked through the Bible in our last mini-series, we learned that we're challenged to combat these in three distinct ways. You know, we're challenged to flee basically the lust of the world, or the temptations of the world, to deny the flesh, and to resist the devil. So in this series, what we're going to do is we're going to examine further the lust of the world and how the lust of the world impacts our pursuit to an abundant life in Christ. Now, the three components of the world system that Satan tempts us with are the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Now, the world, as we call it, represents the value system or priorities or beliefs that exclude God. Now, it's a very, very seductive and challenging and tempting system that can appeal not only to devout believers, but to everyone. And so we're going to keep it real. We're not going to act like the temptations of the world aren't appealing to us, because initially they are. The world system's designed it that way. The world system is put in place to have us believe that what God has designed for us is not good enough. But through the course of the next 3 lessons, we'll lay out and identify that God's plan is exactly for us. So if you just turn to 1 John, open up your Bibles. This is a Bible study, by the way. Open up your Bibles to 1 John 2:15 through 17, and it actually might even be on the screen. That's 1 John 2:15 through 17, and we'll be reading in the New King James Version. It says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever." So that's a very profound text. It's very clear and it's very plain. It's very interesting. Now, in this text, when it says love, it's not talking about how we typically think about love, an intimate, romantic love, but it means love from a preference standpoint. So when it says do not love the world, that means do not prefer the world or the things of the world. Because if anyone prefers the things of the world, things that are affiliated with the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life, if anyone prefers the world, then the love of the Father is not in him, is not in them. So basically it's saying and suggesting to us that we have to have a preference for the things of God versus a preference for the things of the world. Just to knock out a couple standard definitions as we continue through this lesson, when we talk about lust, lust is basically an overwhelming desire or craving. Lust is an overwhelming desire or craving. So we all have overwhelming desires and cravings, like we mentioned earlier. But the key is, what is the object? of our lust? What is the object of our pursuits? And that's what typically gets us in trouble. When we talk about the flesh, we're talking about sinful internal desires that oppose the will of God. So that's sinful internal desires that oppose the will of God. And then pride, I'm going to read the definition for pride. Pride is a high or inordinate opinion of one's own dignity, importance, merit, or superiority, whether it's cherished in the mind or displayed in bearing. So basically it's a higher view of ourselves and our role in our lives as compared to the role of God. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to transition into talking in further detail about each of the three areas, and we're going to start off with talking about lust of the flesh. Lust of the flesh basically is when we have worldly desires that stem from us inside. We all have natural desires to eat food, to have drink, to have sex. We have anger on the inside of us, uncontrolled tongue. And basically lust of the flesh comes from within us. And it's the things that we desire to do. So if you're taking notes, if you have one of the handouts, the lust of the flesh represents our desire to do things. And what we're going to do is show a really neat commercial. It's actually a Doritos commercial. And I want you to pay particular attention to the gentleman in this commercial and see where he went wrong and what his problem was. And then after you watch the video, we'll talk a little bit more about lust of the flesh.
If you keep eating those Doritos, you're gonna turn into one. I wouldn't want to wake up next to a Dorito, would you? You're so lazy.
Honey, look, a tiny dog.
So in that commercial, the gentleman obviously liked Doritos a lot. Imagine his attraction or appeal for Doritos started with eating just a couple with his sandwiches, and then he continued to eat them, and he just ate them more and more and more to the point that his wife told him he's going to turn into a Dorito. As you could see, there's nothing wrong with wanting a Dorito from time to time, just like there's nothing wrong with wanting the various desires that we have from time to time. But his desire became overwhelming. The lust of the flesh, for Doritos in this case, just superseded everything else all the way to the point that he preferred a Dorito over his spouse. And see, that's what happens with us with various things that we want and desire. We pursue them to the degree that it becomes overwhelming, that we replace things that technically are much more important than the Doritos of our lives. So I want you to take a moment and identify what the Doritos in your life are so that we can adequately deal with them in the next session. And so basically the lust of the flesh is the desire to do something apart from the will of God. And that includes every sinful activity that appeals to the sinful heart of us as people. So now we'll transition into the lust of the eyes. The lust of the eyes is the desire to have something apart from the will of God. So the lust of the flesh was the desire to do. The lust of the eyes is the desire to have. So this typically shows up in areas where we weren't already thinking about a particular thing. We weren't overwhelmed. We didn't have a desire for it, but we see something that tricks or fools us into believing it's something that we have to have. Something that we have to have that's apart from the will of God. And whatever it is appealing to our senses, but is probably not ours to desire or ours to obtain. And so this is a very interesting and fascinating concept. And we have another video that we'd like to show you. This is actually a Sonic commercial. And as you watch this video, see the behavior of the two gentlemen in this particular video and see what type of impact the lust of the eyes can have on our lives.
So many great shakes at Sonic, huh?
I know. How is someone supposed to decide?
25 different shakes.
I didn't wait to try them all.
No, it's I can't wait to try them all.
No, I didn't wait to try them all.
What do you mean you didn't wait? You got them all?
Yeah.
Am I going to sit here while you drink all 25 of them?
No, you can walk around if you want.
Real ice cream shakes like strawberry cheesecake and peanut butter fudge. Half price after 8 p.m. This is how you Sonic.
So in that commercial, shakes are delicious. There's nothing wrong with wanting a shake from time to time. And I imagine the gentleman in that video, when he went to Sonic, he only had a desire for one shake. But then the lust of the eyes kicked in. He saw the commercials, he saw the advertisement. He realized not only could he get strawberry, but he could get chocolate, vanilla, strawberry banana swirl, caramel mocha frappe, 25 different shakes that he could get. And because of what he saw with his eyes, he felt like he had to have it. And now all of a sudden it was something that in his mind he needed to get. And he couldn't decide which one, so he ordered all 25 shakes. Now what do you look like trying to eat and drink 25 shakes? When we watch that video, that looks completely crazy to us. But we do and experience the exact same thing. Have you ever been to a store, went shopping? You really didn't need any more shoes. You had all the shoes that you really needed to survive. But then the lust of the eyes kicked in, and you saw somebody else's shoes, or you saw someone else's purse, someone else's jacket, somebody else's car, somebody else's home. You fill in whatever it is for you, but because of the lust of the eyes, now all of a sudden you felt like you needed to have it. And then you couldn't decide which shoe, so you bought 2 or 3 more. And that's what happens, how the lust of the eyes convinces us or fools us into believing that these are things that we actually need, that we actually desire, and then we lose control. I didn't even mention sometimes you have more than one girlfriend or one boyfriend because of the lust of the eyes. You have a significant other that truly you're satisfied with, but you see something else and you see something else, and you feel like you have to have that too. And so that's what happens with lust of the eyes, and how we can completely lose control with lust of the eyes. And I'll even share an example with you that happened to me this past weekend, this Christmas, New Year's. I was visiting my family. And they like to watch a lot of the home hunter, home fix-it-up shows. And so I'm watching the TV shows, and I'm completely satisfied with where I live. I have no problems with the money that I'm making, have no problem with the home that I live in. But then I watch these shows, and people are making a lot more money than I am. And their homes are so much fancier than mine. So now all of a sudden, after watching these shows, my priorities are a little off kilter, because I feel like I need to make more money, and I feel like I need a bigger home, when the reality is that I'm completely satisfied where I am right now. And so thank goodness for preparing for this class, because that helped me see and realize that those things weren't really things that I need. And if you have an opportunity to download the handout that comes along with this, that is available online as well, on page 9 there's a chart and a graph that really will help us delineate what's our true desires versus what's been spawned on by lust of the eyes. And then the last area that we'll cover is what's called the pride of life. The pride of life is the area that we'll cover next. And the pride of life, basically, it's all about me. The pride of life represents a desire to be something apart from the will of God. So if we remember and we walk back, the lust of the flesh was the desire to do something outside of the will of God. The lust of the eyes was the desire to have something outside of the will of God. And the pride of life is the desire to be something outside of the will of God. To be the boss, to be the most powerful, to run the show, to be the shot caller, the big boss, the big baller. All those types of things. And we're going to watch a video. This is actually a Sprite commercial from way back in the day. And then after we watch this video, we'll talk just a little bit more about what happens in the pride of life.
This here freight train. He Pablo. Me, I'm Motif. There's only one drink fat enough to quench our thirst, and that's Turbo Sport 7.
Cut! Genius! The can's upside down!
Don't talk to me like a child. I played Hamlet at Cambridge.
Once again, you've ruined my concentration.
Excuse me. What's my motivation?
When you're thirsty, trust your gut, not some actor.
That's it. I am going to my trailer.
So as we watch that video, a couple things that I wanted to point out. One thing that's very interesting, they said towards the end of the commercial that image is everything. But image is really not everything. They said image is everything, and whatever you do, obey your thirst. So that basically puts us in a position where we feel like we're designed to do what we feel like doing. We feel like we're it. We feel like we're the most powerful. We call all the shots, and that is actually not how life is designed. God is the authority. God is the ultimate authority. And as Christians, God is the authority in our lives. And we have to always keep that in mind. Now, it's very interesting. All three of the gentlemen were about themselves, where they went to school. Don't talk to me that way. I'm this, I'm that. I've obtained all these various things. What is my motivation? And they were always the center of attention. And see, the pride of life causes us to lust after power, to lust after importance, and to lust after attention, where we strive and desire to be the center of attention. And the pride of life ends up being a very large influence in our lives. And sometimes we think that we're being affected by lust of the flesh or lust of the eyes, when it's really the pride of life that's driving, that's the motivation in our inadequacies. And I'll give you a real quick example. Let's say lust of the flesh. That tends to be a big one for us, a desire to have intimacy outside of God's order, outside of God's will, outside of God's priority. But sometimes the way that starts is not internal. I'm sure men especially, women as well, you've all had an instance where you really were not desiring a mate. You were not desiring a significant other. But then the lust of the eyes kicked in. You saw somebody, you saw something, whether it be on TV, whether it be in real life. And now you see someone and you think you have to have that person. Or maybe you saw Brown Sugar, the movie, and you felt like you had to have a significant other. It almost didn't matter who it was, but because of the lust of the eyes, you're now pursuing something. And in your pursuit, you don't want to get turned down. And so it's now not anymore about the person, but it's about winning per se, or accomplishing your goal. And you set out to accomplish that goal by any means necessary. And I know a lot of times we think of this in terms of what guys do, but ladies, you know you do the exact same thing. See, because as guys, we've kind of gotten accustomed to getting rejected. But some of my female friends, oh, nobody's going to turn you down. And so it ends up about satisfying your pride versus it even being about the other person. And that's the type of out-of-control behavior that can come from the pride of life. So that's basically the three areas, and one of the things that I wanted to share with you, and we're going to have a conference call where we can talk about these things a little more if you're able to log into the conference call. But basically the goal of this session is to learn what lust is, to be able to identify the three categories of worldly lust as it's identified in the Bible in 1 John 2, verse 15 through 17, but more importantly, to be able to identify your own list of lust. Identify the areas within those three categories that you struggle so that you can create the list, and in the next session we'll look at how we can adequately deal with it. The next session is actually called, or ultimately it addresses, misplaced thirst. So we all have thirst. We all have something that we're seeking after. And next week, we're going to spend some time looking at how to reprioritize and how to spend most of our time thirsting after things that are beneficial for us versus thirsting after these things that lead us down a slippery road. I appreciate you carving out some time, and we'll look forward to visiting with you next time. God bless.